So here we have a question which states, a shower gel for teenagers is called Cool. So the logo design is for the label is below. So you've got the label here, so you've got a rectangle, a semicircle, equilateral triangles and some lettering. It says complete the full-size logo in the space provided on the right by drawing the logo outline, the cool lettering and the three-point shape in the top of the semicircle. So given the start of the rectangle, so working on this rectangle, extending these lines up, and the distance of the length of that line is 50, so marking 50, drawing a horizontal and this vertical here. So it does say this distance here is 160, which would mean that this radius of 80 will go from side to side. It's a good idea to mark the centre here. So you can see here, if we look at the original, the centre goes straight through the centre of the O's. So it's a good idea to start with that, because quite often with symmetrical shapes, the centre line helps you construct it, particularly with this one. So this distance, this length here on the printout from the website is not actually 160, it is 156. So half of that is 78. So I'm going to set my compass, I'm going to work with what I've got and set my compass to 78 and double check it on my centre line. So it's going to make it a little bit tricky with the shapes inside. So checking it reaches, it's in the centre, and just checking it's going to go from one point and checking the other side, because the shape may not be complete, it's not completely in the printout. So we're going to work with what we've got. To the top and checking the other side. To the top. It's a little bit smaller on one side than the other due to the printout, so it's just making that work the best. So we're going to look at this area here because it does help to construct that shape there, particularly because it's slightly out. So looking at this area here, you can see that these are, they're equilateral triangles. So you know that each side of this triangle is the same length. And it tells you here that this distance is 40. So you know each side is 40. And to construct that with a compass, can be quite easy. But we don't know our starting points. But you can see from here, so visually solving this problem, you can see from here that the starting point on this line is in line. So looking at it visually, it's, this point here, the starting point for the shape is at the top of the lettering. So by constructing the lettering, you can find your starting point. So you know that this is the top and the bottom of that lettering. You can see here that it's the same all the way along if we look at the top and the bottom. So you can just do that, a visual check, and you know that that works. You know that this has a radius of 20. So it's a radius of 20, so the diameter is 40. So you can mark that and mark your vertical, keeping lines light. The other two letters are 35, which is going to make a difference. Because it's a little bit short, it's going to look a bit closer. It's not the full 160 length. So drawing the vertical here. 35 and marking out here. So you can see it's a little bit because of the printout, but as long as the measurements from the centre are right, it's going to work. So we know, looking at the top section, now we've got our letters placed, we can use that as guidance here to start our equilateral triangles. So we know we've got the centre, and we know we've got an angle here of 30 degrees. So we'll pop those in because those are our lines we're going to use to construct. So using our protractor to mark out 30 on either side. And then marking that out to the edge. So we've got our 3 lines. So this line here, you can see, we've got these 3 guiding lines that are going to help us. So we know how to place our shapes. So we know the length of the side, it starts here, goes up to here, and then across, and each side is 40. So we can set the compass to 40. And remembering how to construct an equilateral triangle, if you're starting with one point, you can measure 40, and then using this line, you can use where they cross, because each line is 40, you can use where they cross to mark out your lines. So you know that if you use the compass, each side is going to be 40, and where they cross is going to make your equilateral triangle. So using that idea, we've got more guidelines. So we know that we start here, so that's this starting point here, and it's going to go on this line that I drew that's 30 degrees. So we know from there it's going to be somewhere out here. So we can also use that point again. And if they don't cross, go back to it. They will. So we know that equilateral triangle goes up to here. And across to here. And the same on the other side. So it starts where the edge of that letter comes up here on the 30-degree line, and then there's going to be another one here. So putting it on that point there and marking there. And from there, the 2 points are going to be somewhere on this centre line here. So using the compass again, just where it crosses the centre line, you can always double check from the other side. That's that shape. So now doing the lettering. So the easiest one to start with is this one here. You know the lettering is 10 thick, and you know that the radius is 20. So finding the centre of this, we know this is 40 by 40 because the height's 40 and this distance is 40. So you can find the centre. Set your compass to radius 20. And set that in the centre. That's the L side. It's always a good idea, once you've got your centres, draw your centre line in, because it's going to help with the other radiuses. So centre line, and then we know the inside is, the thickness is 10, so the inside is slightly smaller, so it's going to be the radius of 10. So using this. Got the O done. So looking at the C here, we know it's 10 thick, so we can just use either measure it down here, or we can use the thickness here because it's the same. So I think I'm going to just double check the measurement. So it's 10 thick. So mark either end. And I can see it will affect the L as well, so I'm going to draw that straight across. I'm going to draw it there. So we've got the arc here. So this distance is 35, so it's not going to be half of that because it has to go from top to bottom. So it's going to be the same as this one here, the same arc, which was a radius of 20. So it's the centre point is going to be somewhere on that line there. So we can set the compass to 20. And we know that it stops here, so we put the point of the compass here and making sure it's on the centre line. It should go from the top to the bottom. We know that the thickness is 10, so it's going to be starting there. So we know that from here, the radius is 10. It's the same as the O. It's all the same all the way through. So again, we know that this distance from here is going to have to be 10, so just mark that so we know the thickness. Set the compass at that starting point, and it should go from the top to the bottom. Might need to just make that work. So I've got 2 lines there, so I'll just make sure that I use the right one. And then this extends out to the vertical. So you can just extend this along. So I'm using my inside one here. And that's the C. So the L, you've got the horizontal and the vertical, and then you've got an arc, so it's the same idea. So measuring 10 here, and then marking in the vertical. And we've got an arc in the corner, so we're going to set it using the same measurements, the radius of 20, and just somewhere on the centre line where it touches that, it's just got an arc in the corner. And then moving it to 10, and keeping on the centre line. Making sure it's on the line, you can always redo it. It's trickier with the smaller. And then completing the L to the end. Completing the top and the vertical. Keep all your construction lines to show how you've worked it out.